All right, well, let's start with that as it's on my head. Right, so part 2 to my trauma story is going to be about the police investigation. Now, this, in and out of itself, a lot of people are very scared about when it comes to trauma and it comes to these kinds of things. Now, you don't have to go to the police if you don't want to, right? It's a completely personal thing. I've had clients that wanted to go to the police. I've had clients that don't want to go to the police. I've had family members. I've had, people that I know are stuck with the decision of going to the police about these things. And it's like, it's hard because you go down the police avenue, investigations will be had, people will be spoken to, and some people worry for their life more if they go to the police because they know that the police are very incapable of doing a lot of things. I went to the police mainly because I just wanted them to know that I know and that I remembered and that they didn't get away with it. Regardless of if anything actually came out of it, obviously, like dream state, yeah, I'd love for them to have been arrested. I'd love for them to have actually admitted it on purpose or by accident. I'd have loved for them to find some sort of evidence to actually understand that, yeah, these things did happen 150% unequivocally and he's been arrested. Brilliant. Now you're going to go to court. I haven't had that experience. Because it happened, I went to the police, it happened 22 years ago, right? There's no evidence that can be brought forward 22 years later, right? Unless somebody admits it, somebody actually sides with me and says, yes, that did happen, some family member on that side, which they're not going to do because they all love themselves too much. They're all up their own asses, right? And that's never going to happen. But that's a horrible experience in and of itself. When you've got to go to the police station, it's not like a normal police station, it's a special house in the forest. It's really nice, actually. There's no police cars there. All the police officers are in plain clothes. Like, it's not, you don't feel, it felt quite nice. Yeah, I felt quite looked after. I was in a very strange looking room. It was quite a nice, comfortable room. There were teddy bears and there were like that kind of, it was like, that kind of stuff. There was a 2-screen window with, everything was being recorded and I had to give my statement. And that is hard. Because you have to, in the most explicit detail possible, go over exactly what happened to you over as much time as you can remember. So I had to disclose 10 years worth of abuse in as much detail as I physically could. And that's hard. And I've written a book about that. And one day I want that book to be published. Because that is something that people will actually be able to buy and actually be able to understand. Because I know I cannot go into that kind of detail online. I just can't. And that is an experience. Again, I'm glad I had it. I'm glad I did it. But man, that was hard. That was really hard. And it is something that no amount of preparation can prepare you for. Everybody's experience is different, but nobody can prepare you for that. Going into the police area, police station. It's not really a station. It's a police house, giving that information, having to relive it. Because I relived it a couple of times. My therapy sessions, when I was going through my trauma therapy and I was like starting to write my book a little bit and I was just starting to like say it, the more you say it, the less control it has over you. And people don't like that because it's something hard you have to do. But you stand there and you say it in unequivocal words, right? So like I can say it now and I can not cry, for example, right? The first few times I said it, I couldn't not cry because it was just so hard. It was understanding that had happened to you. Right? But now I can say it and it's like water off a duck's back. Like, yeah, this has happened to me. This is my story. Information, right? And I can say it and not really think too much about it. But, and the first few times I said it, it was life-changing. Because you realize, it really comes to you then and you're just like, Holy Mary, Mother of God, I can't believe this has actually happened and I just don't want it to have happened. But yeah, when you first understand, but then you for me, for example, right, I looked back at my entire life, like the physical abuse that had happened to me, I then gave to other people who I thought were weaker than me, because at the time that I was being abused, I was the weakest person. So therefore I tried to find people who were weaker than me, right? So like, top examples, my mum. Whenever my dad would go to work, I would then become very violent and abusive towards my mum. Right, because I knew she wouldn't be able to handle my strength, even though I was a child, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, right? I was still stronger than her, especially when I like really kick off, to the point that my mum had to put a lock on the outside of my bedroom door so that she could just pick me up, throw me in and then lock me in, and then I would just like fit out in the room. Another one was my cousin Tom. I've always said to him, because I have never really known him since I've known about what's happened to me, and he refuses to speak to me at any family gatherings, right? I would speak to him, but I'm not going to make the first move. We used to be like brothers. We used to be tight, thick as thieves. I still love him to bits. Always have loved him. I was, I don't even know, maybe 14, maybe even older than that, 15, 16, when we used to start going out on the longboards and out on push bikes and stuff, when our parents used to let us outside the house, right? When I used to see him at my grandma's, or he used to come around mine, or I used to go around his, first thing I would do, without hesitation, was I would put him in a headlock and take him to the floor, right? And he classifies this as, I don't know if he would use the word abuse, but physical violence. And it was violent. I'm not going to stand here and deny that, right? It was violent. First thing I would do, and I would squeeze his little head so hard that I would make him, well, tap out and be like, please just let go, right? And I know he used to hate it, right? I would hate it. It's fair enough, right? Bullying, I suppose you could call it bullying, right? Myself, for like years, I never understood why I did it. I could never pinpoint why I would be so cruel to him. Well, I suppose more specifically, now obviously with the background that I have and the understanding that I have, as we do as humans, we take out our feelings to the people that we love the most and the people that we're closest with, which is why I've always been violent to my mum. This is why when I was young, this is why I've always been quite abusive to my own family, and I've always, taken it out mostly on my family. That's not an excuse. When you're a small child, you go through these things. As then we mature and we grow up as an adult, it's then your choice whether you actually continue to be horrible and abusive and things like that, and you either follow the circle of what's been done to you, or you change and you break that cycle. And it's like I would look at it as your manly duty to break the cycle, because I know a lot of people, and I know that's going to piss a lot of people off, like the manly duty to break the cycle, but I suppose it's not even a manly duty. It's your duty to your own family to break the cycle of abuse, to ensure that it doesn't happen to your own kids, and you do have to do it as you have to make sure that you put as much effort in as physically possible to ensure that it doesn't happen to your kids, and that you can break the cycle, and you can do it in that way. I know I've got a friend of mine whose dad was very physically aggressive and I suppose abusive to him, and he has said that if he ever does end up having kids, that he would never lay a finger on them. So then that right there, breaking the cycle, it doesn't have to necessarily be sexual or physical abuse. It can be some sort of mental abuse. I know other people who have a lovely family, loving, caring family, however their entire life it's just been, well, you aren't good enough, you aren't pretty enough, blah, 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 those kinds of things. And so then that's the mental side of things as well. And then they're going, I've spoken to them as well, by then them going into when they have kids, they have said, it will always be positive encouragement. It will never be negative encouragement, whether it's a joke or not a joke, just because that's what their family did to them. And, most people don't even notice, especially if it's not like big abuse, like sexual abuse or physical abuse. Most people don't even notice that they're actually being quite mentally abusive in different ways. And, it can then lead to obviously bigger problems down the line when you have kids and when they grow up. It can lead to massive amounts of anxiety and social problems and stuff, which again you wouldn't even notice because they've always been that way. But they've always been that way because they haven't had the encouragement to be able to grow and develop into the person that they could have been. And then it takes a lot to get that person to grow into the person that they can be. So yeah, it's one of those moments. But yeah, I mean. When I look back at my life, I do feel pretty awful about the things that I've done to people and the things that I wish that I could take back. The relationship I had with my cousin, he was like a brother, literally the brother I never had. I have a little sister, but that's the only siblings that I have. And so like, I looked at him as a brother, always did do. Like we would spend all night playing Call of Duty. We would we were literally conjoined at the hip. And then unfortunately, sexual abuse put a wedge between us, and because of, unfortunately, his own ignorance in actually understanding what that did to me and my family, and what that has an effect on my parents, my sister. He just wouldn't take that into consideration because it didn't happen to him. It's never happened to him. He doesn't understand the effects of how horrible that can be, and that is essentially what drove a wedge between us, unfortunately. And it is shit. It is, it is rubbish. And that subsequent wedge has been driven between multiple other facets of my family. Obviously, and that's what trauma does. That's what physical and sexual abuse. I would say more toward the sexual side of things, because people don't want to believe that interfamilial sexual abuse is possible, and if it doesn't happen to you, it's a bit like, well, get on with it, sort of thing. And that's shit, and that's really shit, and it is such as life. But we all have a duty. I've stood here and I've said that men need to accept their feelings, and men need to understand that their emotions are something that you do have to deal with. And I stand by that. You do have to accept that your emotions are there, and you have to understand how to deal with them. But you cannot be ruled by your emotions. And this is something that I've had to come to the hard conclusion of. And it's the easy way out. Being ruled by your emotions, being ruled by your feelings is the easy way out of life. You can say, oh, I'm not feeling very good, so I'm not going to go to work, or I'm not, I don't. And like I said about earlier, 50 Cent said about being depression is a luxury. And, in a lot of facets, it is. You have to just get on with life sometimes. And the fact that a lot of people don't get on with life is, again, it's hard because it's not necessarily their fault that they are the way that they are, but it is your fault that you are the way that you are continuing on. Like, I could have quite easily been a drug addict my entire life, and I could have been quite happy with that. I could have had a normal run-of-the-mill job. I could have just accepted that I've been abused, and I use that as an excuse for my drug habit, right? But I decided, no, I don't want anybody or anything to have that kind of control over me. I'm going to change my life for the positive. I'm going to completely and utterly do something more beneficial to change and understand that if I don't do something now, then when I come to have kids, they will subsequently go down the same path that I went down, whether it's because they'll see me do the same things. And that's something I also said. I don't want to do drugs forever. I don't want to do drugs. And I come to that conclusion before, years ago, before I left for Australia. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to be that person. I want to change. And when you change and you go down this road, it is very lonely. I've lost all my friends, all of them. I don't speak to any of them anymore, apart from literally one friend. Because, and I know years ago I said, actually, in one of my first videos I ever made, I said I've only got like 4 or 5 friends that I would trust my credit card. And realistically, I don't speak to anybody apart from my partner and my parents and my clients. I don't speak to anyone because self-discovery and self-evaluation and self-healing journey is extremely lonely. Because unless you have somebody that's gone through the same or similar things than you have, then they just have no idea what you're doing, why you're going through it, and what is essentially happening to you and what has happened to you and why you're doing the things that you do. One of my best friends I've lost very recently because we fell out over money, but he has no idea about the things that I've gone through because he's never bothered to ask. Right? He sits there and he moans, and he's one of those people that would sit there and moan about his situation and that, it is what it is, and, nothing's going to save me, and I'm just working hard, but can't see that actually spending all of his money on drinking drugs, and that if he stopped drinking and stopped doing drugs, then he would have a lot more money to put into other things, and he's in debt, because he keeps doing drugs, but he does drugs to feel better about himself so that he doesn't have to worry about his emotional response that's going on. He just numbs the feeling. But it's the same as if you watch pornography or you do loads of video games on all the time without dealing with your problems. I'm not saying you can't do those things and enjoy them, because from time to time I like to play video games, and it is like actually a little bit of fun that I have with my partner's brother, because he loves the video games, but he has a solid job and he has savings and he has his life together, and he loves working on his car and those kinds of bits. That's what he loves to do. He loves doing his sports. He's got friends, all of the tick boxes in life, those kinds of things but he's happy. And this is the thing, a lot of people you know, you see all these things online and the Matrix and like earning loads of money, and you see these people who are earning like hundreds of or thousands of pounds a month from online businesses and stuff. Not everybody wants that in life, and that took me a real moment to sort of realize, because I went through about a year where I wanted to make loads of money online and all this kind of stuff, but it comes to the very quick conclusion that actually self-fulfillment and what it's, each individual person has their each individual life to live, and like I just like helping people. So whether that's helping people with their physical fitness, is whether that's helping people with their mental health, whether that's helping people, you know, with their addiction, whatever it is, I like helping people. And I, you know, and then I know like my dad, for example, he's happy going to work and coming home and then watching the telly and eating donuts. He's happy with it. I've said this before, you know, that's what he's really, really happy doing, and he doesn't want to change it. You know, he works on his motorbike at the weekends, he does some gardening, he does some pottering around. That's him, right? He's a happy man. My mum, again, a very simple person. She likes to watch telly, walk the dog, and help people on, and that's what she does. She works for multiple different charities, and she does all these different kinds of things to be able to help people through mental health, right? That's her. That's what she wants to do. My partner loves working with animals. If she could if she could just work with animals and walk dogs all day long, she would. That's what she loves to do, right? And again, my partner's brother loves canoeing, loves rock climbing, and you know, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and he's happy working on his car and going to work and coming home, and that's him. You know, everybody's got their own thing in life, and that's what life fulfillment fundamentally is. It's about finding something you love to do and doing it. And if you can make money off of it, fantastic. And especially in the new digital age these days, you can make money off of anything. I know people who make money online TikTok just doing nothing. I know people who sell their pants for like hundreds of pounds, right? It's incredible what people will pay money for these days, and what people do as a job. So it's very easy to do what you love to do, but it's about going on the self-healing process and actually being able to understand that you can do whatever you want to do. You just have to find a love for something, and once you really love something, you're actually able to do it and make money from it and get life fulfillment and help people along the way. And that's where I'm at, and that's what I absolutely love doing, and that's, you know, who I want to be and where I want to go and all the things that I want to do. So there's no stress there whatsoever, which is just lovely. But my self-healing journey has taken massive turns. Like I say, I've lost nearly all my family, I've lost nearly all my friends, because to be able to recover, and I do, it's something me and mum clash on a lot. She says that, you know, you will never recover from the things that you go through, and I fundamentally disagree. I think that you can recover. Will you ever be the same as the person you could have been beforehand? No. And I think that's what a lot of people misconstrue, is they say, oh, I just, like, you know, for example, rape victims, right? So some very unfortunate person has that happen to them, and then they are a different person, and they will be a different person for the rest of their life. It's the same with trauma survivors and stuff. Once something like that has happened, you will change into a different person. But that doesn't mean that the new person can't recover from what happened, I think, because I know that the James that was going to be before what happened to me happened is dead, is gone. It's never going to be who I could have been. But the James that I am now isn't recovered, might be on the recovery journey for the next 10, 20, 30 years, but I am much better now than I was 3 years ago, for example. Like, every day is a school day. Every week I'm learning something new. Every month I am doing something to better me in a forward motion. So this will be probably one of the next videos we talk about, and we talk about like self-sustaining habits and self-sustaining processes that actually last a long time. So things like, you know, challenges you see online, like 75 days hard or 100 push-ups a day, or, you know, things like that for charity and stuff, which are awesome, but they are not beneficial, long-lasting change that is going to actually change your life for the rest of your life, because it's too much change in one go. Right, and this is something I preach to my clients a lot, is that you need to take baby steps. You need to do one thing at a time, see what works, and then that will naturally become a habit without you even thinking about it. So I know I said, I don't know if it was the last video or earlier in this video, I said about things that I do now that work for me, that don't work for me, that didn't work for me like ages ago. You know, like when I first started self-healing journey, I did everything that I saw online, literally everything, to see what would work. And cold exposure, carnivore diet, things like that. I know meditation, journaling, things like that, that realistically I wanted to try to just see what was what, right? Journaling was one of the things that I did for years, and it saved me so many times, and it was absolutely fantastic. Now I feel like I've nearly written everything down that I actually need to. So now it's transitioned from journaling to writing more of a scripted book, more of a title, and like actually thinking about things from a different perspective. That's something I've been really enjoying, but nowhere near as much as meditation. I tried meditation very seriously for like a year, and it was good. It served its purpose, but it wasn't what I expected it to be. Now, I'm very hit and miss with it. Some days it's amazing, but it's more beneficial. Meditation now is more beneficial for me than journaling, for example, right? Cold showers. I loved cold showers in the warm when it was hot, obviously, because it was just something nice to cool down, but I never really wanted to do it when I was cold. Now, I love cold showers, especially first thing when I wake up, just jump in the shower. Not ice cold. I haven't quite worked up to ice cold yet, but cold showers, it just stimulates so much in my body, and I just know that it's doing so many amazing things. I can just feel it, and just sitting there and doing the uncomfortable thing that you might not want to do just spurs you on to do more uncomfortable things. And I know I've said that in multiple videos. Doing the one uncomfortable thing will spur you, or doing one really uncomfortable thing will spur you on to do a lot of little uncomfortable things, if that makes sense. So if you do the one really uncomfortable thing that you really don't want to do, which is way worse than the thing you have to do. So like jumping in the shower, way worse than sitting down and doing my tax, for example, right? So my tax return. So I'd rather jump in the shower. So once I've done the really hard thing, which is jump in the shower in the cold, sitting down and doing my tax doesn't actually seem that bad. And so that is what I advocate to my clients. Do the really hard thing that you really don't want to do, because it will spur you on to do the less hard things that you need to do. But that's me and my journey, my trauma, some of the very little things that has happened from my trauma that fundamentally has shaped me into the person that I am today. Some of the regrets that I have and some of the things that I would change. But like I say, it's a very hard thing to say, because I wouldn't change any of the experiences that has happened to me, but I would change a lot of the things that I did to other people. But then because I was a child, I didn't know why I was doing them. Nobody knew why I was doing them. My parents didn't know why. The doctors didn't know why. And so there's lots of things that, I would go back and change if I had the choice. But at the same time, I might not be where I am today if I did go back and change those things. So that's the thing you've got to think about with the trauma, is that, yes, it's shit, and yes, it's not fair for it to happen to anyone, but if that didn't happen to you, then you wouldn't be the person that you are today, going on the journey that you are, and you might not be in the situation that you are. So, everything has a silver lining. Every journey has a positive end to it. It's just that you might not be there, that you might be in the thick of the dark tunnel, you might be going into the dark tunnel, you might be just coming out of the tunnel, you might be seeing some light. It depends where you are in your healing journey, and this healing journey can last decades, and it can last months. I've had people that I know that go on a self-discovery healing journey, and it doesn't last very long. They go on, they try a bunch of things, it works for them, phenomenal, move on. Whereas I know some people who do it and they've been doing it for decades, and they're better than they were, they're in a different position than they were, but they are not where they want to be. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's just what it is. So I think that is pretty comprehensive. I might do again another one if I get asked to do by some people and some stuff. I'll probably do a video on some of the conditions that I've been left with due to the trauma, because that's always an interesting one. But they're not official diagnoses, so I suppose you can't really do that because it's not official, and someone will fucking moan at that. But yes, obviously, any questions, please do not forget to drop them in the comments below. Don't forget to like, follow, and share. And if you have any coaching needs, if you have any questions at all, do not hesitate to reach out and let us know, and we will best advise you what to do and where to go. And if we can help you, we definitely will. But other than that, guys, I hope you have a fantastic day, and I shall see you in the next one.